Dear friends, when you walk into a room full of people, do you really see them, or do you only see your own reflection in their eyes? In life, we move fast, we speak loud, we try to be heard, but how often do we stop to listen? How often do we breathe deep and give space for another person to reveal what is inside? Understanding others is not only about hearing words, it is about feeling the silence between those words. It is the art of sensing without rushing and seeing without judging. Every person you meet carries a story. Some stories shine like sunlight and others hide in shadows. When you allow your mind to become still like a calm lake, you start to notice the ripples of another soul. You start to feel their joys and their struggles. This is the beginning of true understanding. It does not come from controlling or demanding. It comes from openness and patience. In our practice of life, the first step is always to look inward. If you are not at peace with your own mind, you cannot be at peace with others. When you train yourself to slow down your breath, to quiet your thoughts, to observe without reaction, you will find that understanding others becomes natural. Your presence alone becomes a space where another person feels safe enough to be real. This is more powerful than any words you could say. The strength of a person is not only in the muscles or in the voice. It is in the capacity to hold another person's experience without fear. When you stand firm yet soft, when you listen without waiting to reply, when you see without labels, you grow beyond your own limits. This is where respect is born and where conflict begins to dissolve. Do not confuse understanding with agreement. You do not need to agree to understand. You do not need to change another person to feel compassion. The path is to see the truth as it is in them and in yourself. This is how walls come down and bridges are built. When your heart is steady and your mind is clear, you begin to respond rather than react. In this state, you become a mirror for clarity and a source of calm. Life will test your patience. People will push your limits. In those moments, remember to breathe, remember to anchor yourself. The storms of others are not your storms, but you can still offer shelter. This is the practice of deep understanding. It is not weakness, it is strength refined through self-mastery. Each time you choose to understand, rather than judge, you elevate yourself and the other person. Each time you listen, you create space for healing. Each time you stay present, you break a cycle of misunderstanding. This is how one person can begin to shift a whole environment. This is how peace grows in places where conflict once ruled. When you choose to listen, to understand, and not to reply, you step into a space of real connection. Most people hear words, but do not listen to the meaning behind them. They wait for their turn to speak. They prepare their response, while the other person is still sharing their heart. This habit creates distance and misunderstanding. True listening is not about waiting, it is about being fully present with no rush and no agenda. It is about setting aside your assumptions, your judgments, and your inner noise so that you can meet another human being where they truly are. Listening to understand is an act of humility. It means you accept that your view is not the only view. It means you value another person's experience as much as your own. This shift transforms every interaction. When you listen in this way, the other person feels seen and respected. They sense your patience and your openness. Their guard drops, their words become more honest, and their heart begins to trust. This is how relationships deepen and conflicts dissolve. No great bond is built without the foundation of listening. When you train yourself to listen beyond the surface of words, you start to hear tone, pauses, and emotions. You begin to see body language. You notice the energy behind each sentence. Sometimes what is not said is even more important than what is said. By noticing these subtle signals, you develop empathy, and you step into the inner world of another person. This is where compassion grows. This is where understanding becomes natural. It is not forced, it is allowed to emerge because you have created space for it. In life, many people are suffering silently. They may smile, they may act strong, but inside they carry worries and fears. If you listen only to their words, you will miss their pain. But if you listen with your whole presence, you can sense it. You can acknowledge it without judgment. You can offer a moment of comfort simply by being there. This is why listening to understand is so powerful. It is not only a skill, it is an act of kindness. Developing this kind of listening requires practice and patience. You must first quiet your own inner dialogue. Breathe slowly and let go of the urge to interrupt. Pay attention to the other person's eyes, voice and gestures. When your mind wanders, bring it back gently. Keep your focus on the present moment. In doing this, you build self-control and inner stability. These qualities help you stay calm, even when conversations become heated. They allow you to respond thoughtfully, instead of reacting impulsively. Another benefit of listening to understand is the growth of mutual respect. When people feel heard, they are more willing to hear you. When they feel valued, they are more open to your ideas. This creates a cycle of cooperation rather than conflict. It also strengthens your own leadership qualities. A person who listens deeply earns trust. Trust leads to influence, and influence leads to positive change. All of this begins with a single decision to listen with an open mind. It is also important to remember that listening to understand does not mean you must agree. It does not mean you lose your voice or your boundaries. It simply means you are willing to see the world through another person's eyes before you respond. This balanced approach helps you form wiser opinions and stronger relationships. It also nurtures a sense of unity even in diversity. When we recognize the humanity in others, we recognize it more deeply in ourselves. Practicing this every day turns ordinary conversations into opportunities for growth. Whether at home, at work, or in the community, your ability to listen can heal tension and create harmony. It can prevent small misunderstandings from growing into bigger problems. It can transform arguments into dialogues and strangers into allies. Listening to understand is like planting seeds of peace in every interaction. Over time, these seeds grow into trust, cooperation, and mutual respect. As you continue on this path, remember that your listening is a gift. It costs nothing but your attention, yet it gives back far more than words can measure. Each time you choose to listen deeply, you affirm the worth of another human being. Each time you choose to understand before replying, you build a bridge where there was once a gap. This simple practice can elevate your life and the lives of those around you. So listen to understand, not to reply, and you will discover a strength and a wisdom that can change everything. Empathy is the bridge that connects hearts because it allows you to step beyond your own experiences and enter into the world of another person. It is more than sympathy, more than feeling sorry for someone. It is the ability to feel with them, to imagine their joys and their struggles as if they were your own. When you cultivate empathy, you begin to dissolve the invisible walls that separate one person from another. These walls are built from assumptions, judgments, and fears. Empathy slowly removes them brick by brick until what remains is a clear space where understanding can flow. Many people speak, but very few truly connect. Connection happens when empathy is present. It softens your tone, changes your words, and guides your actions. When you meet someone who is angry or upset, empathy allows you to see beyond their reaction. You begin to see the pain or fear that drives their behavior. This does not excuse harmful actions, but it helps you respond with wisdom instead of anger. Empathy gives you the ability to stay calm when others are not, to offer kindness when others cannot. In this way, it is a form of strength, not weakness. Empathy also requires patience. You cannot rush into someone else's inner world. You have to slow down, pay attention, and hold your judgments. This act of slowing down is powerful because it signals respect. It tells the other person you care enough to understand their perspective. When people feel that level of care, they open up. Their defenses lower, Their honesty increases and their trust begins to grow. This is how empathy acts as a bridge. It allows one heart to reach another, even when there is pain or conflict between them. At times, empathy may feel uncomfortable. When you really open yourself to another person's pain, you may feel it in your own heart. This discomfort is part of the process. It stretches your compassion and deepens your humanity. It teaches you resilience, because carrying the awareness of another person's struggles while maintaining your own balance is a skill. Over time, this practice makes you emotionally stronger and more capable of supporting others without losing yourself. In daily life, empathy can transform ordinary interactions. A coworker who seems distant may be struggling at home. A friend who appears irritable may be overwhelmed with stress. A stranger who acts rudely may be carrying invisible wounds. When you bring empathy into these situations, you shift from judgment to curiosity. You no longer ask, "What is wrong with them?" but instead, "What might they be going through?" This subtle change in thinking creates space for kindness. It prevents you from adding more negativity to their burden. It also allows you to model a higher standard of behavior, one that inspires others to act with more compassion as well. Practicing empathy also enhances your ability to lead and influence. Leaders who understand their people can guide them with clarity and fairness. Friends who empathize with each other build unshakable bonds. Communities that practice empathy create cultures of support rather than competition. When empathy becomes a shared value, it transforms the environment. People feel safer, more respected, and more motivated to contribute. This is why empathy is not only a personal virtue, but also a collective strength. To develop empathy, you must first be aware of your own emotions. Self-awareness allows you to recognize what is yours and what belongs to someone else. This boundary helps you stay grounded while connecting deeply with others. It also allows you to be authentic in your interactions. You are no longer pretending to care, you are truly present, yet still centered within yourself. From this balanced state, empathy flows naturally and sustainably. It is important to remember that empathy does not mean agreement or surrender. You can empathize with someone's feelings while still holding your own opinions and values. The goal is not to erase differences, but to understand them. This understanding reduces conflict because it replaces fear with knowledge and judgment with compassion. When two people approach each other with empathy, even disagreement can lead to growth rather than hostility. Empathy is the bridge that connects hearts because it is built on respect, patience, and genuine care. Every time you choose to empathize, you build another plank in that bridge. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, you strengthen its foundation. As this bridge grows, you will find it easier to cross divides, to mend relationships, and to inspire trust. In a world where many feel isolated and unheard, empathy becomes a rare and powerful gift. By offering it freely, you not only lift others, but also expand your own capacity for love and understanding. This is how empathy becomes not just an act, but a way of living. True understanding begins with inner calm and self-awareness, because without knowing yourself, you cannot fully know another. When your mind is restless and your emotions are unsettled, every interaction is colored by your own confusion. You react instead of respond, you assume instead of observe, and you project your own fears and hopes onto other people. This creates a wall between you and them, a wall built by your own inner turbulence. When you cultivate inner calm, you dissolve that wall. You create space inside yourself to receive the reality of another person without distortion. This is where true understanding starts to grow. Inner calm is not simply the absence of noise. It is the presence of steadiness. It comes from learning to breathe deeply, to center your thoughts, and to remain anchored even when life pushes you off balance. When you develop this steadiness, your perception becomes sharper. You are no longer overwhelmed by every word or gesture from others. You begin to see the subtle signs of their emotions and needs. You sense what lies beneath their expressions and their tone. This sensitivity does not come from trying harder. It comes naturally when the noise inside you fades. Self-awareness is the mirror that reflects your own patterns. It shows you your triggers, your judgments, your expectations, and your biases. Without that mirror, you will mistake your inner reactions for the truth about others. But when you become aware of your own inner landscape, you can separate what belongs to you from what belongs to someone else. This clarity allows you to meet people where they truly are rather than where your assumptions place them. It is an act of honesty with yourself that enables honesty with others. To build inner calm and self-awareness, you must practice moments of stillness. In a world full of constant noise and distraction, this is not easy. But even a few minutes each day of quiet breathing, reflection, or mindful observation can reset your inner state. These moments teach you patience and presence. They train your mind to slow down, to pause before speaking, to notice before judging. As you repeat this practice, calm and awareness become natural states rather than forced efforts. When you bring this calm self-awareness into your interactions, you create a very different atmosphere. People feel it even before you speak. Your steadiness becomes a quiet signal of safety. They sense they can be themselves without being rushed or judged. This atmosphere encourages honesty and openness. It invites trust. Trust leads to deeper connection and understanding. Without saying a word, you are already offering respect, simply by the way you hold yourself and your attention. Inner calm also protects you from being swept into other people's emotional storms. You can witness their frustration, pain, or joy without losing your own balance. This does not mean you are cold or distant. On the contrary, it allows you to be fully present without being overwhelmed. You can empathize deeply while maintaining your own clarity. This balance is essential if you wish to be a steady source of support for others, rather than another wave in their turbulence. With self-awareness, you also begin to notice the impact of your words and actions. You realize how your tone can comfort or harm, how your body language can invite or repel, how your silence can heal or wound. This awareness gives you the power to choose your responses consciously rather than falling into automatic habits. When your choices become deliberate, they become more compassionate and effective. This is the practical side of inner calm and self-awareness. They give you control over your influence. It is also important to understand that self-awareness is not self-criticism. You do not gain calm by judging yourself harshly. You gain it by observing yourself with kindness and curiosity. This gentle observation softens your inner resistance and makes it easier to change. Over time, you grow more patient, not only with others but also with yourself. This patience naturally extends into your relationships and creates a cycle of mutual understanding and respect. As you continue on this path, you will find that the more you know yourself, the less you fear differences in others. You recognize in them the same hopes and doubts you have faced. This recognition dissolves barriers. You begin to see that all people are connected by common human experiences. From this understanding, compassion arises. Compassion becomes the natural expression of your inner calm and self-awareness. True understanding begins with inner calm and self-awareness, because only a clear and steady mind can truly see another person. Without it, every interaction becomes clouded. With it, every interaction becomes an opportunity for connection. Cultivating this state within yourself is one of the greatest gifts you can give to others. When you are calm inside, you become a mirror in which others can see themselves more clearly. When you are self-aware, you become a bridge between their world and yours. This is how understanding blossoms and how lasting respect and harmony take root. Every person carries a story you have not yet heard, and this simple truth changes the way you approach the world. Too often people look at others and make quick judgments based on appearance, behavior, or a single moment. They forget that behind every face is a lifetime of experiences, triumphs, and heartbreaks. When you hold this awareness, you begin to move through life with greater humility and patience. You stop rushing to conclusions and start opening space for understanding. This shift is the foundation for real human connection. Every story is shaped by unseen struggles and invisible victories. Someone who seems distant may be carrying memories of loss. Someone who appears angry may be weighed down by disappointment or pain. Someone who shines with confidence may still have doubts hidden beneath their smile. When you recognize that you only see the surface of another person's life, you begin to develop compassion. Compassion grows naturally from the realization that you do not know everything about the person standing in front of you. Approaching others with this mindset invites curiosity instead of judgment. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with them?" you begin to ask, "What has shaped them?" This question softens your heart and expands your perception. It allows you to see not only the behavior, but also the humanity behind it. In this way, you transform your relationships from transactional to meaningful. You stop treating people as obstacles or tools and start treating them as complex beings with their own paths. Listening becomes essential in this process. When you are willing to hear someone's story without interrupting or correcting, you give them a rare gift. Many people live their whole lives without truly being heard. When you offer your full attention, you provide them a moment of validation and respect. This act of listening does not just inform you about their life, it also heals something within them. It tells them their story matters. It tells them they matter. Holding the awareness that every person carries a story you have not yet heard also protects you from taking things personally. When someone reacts harshly or behaves coldly, you realize it may have nothing to do with you. They may be struggling with their own challenges. This understanding allows you to stay calm instead of escalating tension. It gives you the strength to respond with patience rather than react with anger. Over time, this creates harmony instead of conflict in your interactions. Developing this perspective also enriches your own life. When you become genuinely interested in others, you discover lessons, insights, and inspiration hidden in their stories. Every person you meet becomes a teacher. Their journeys reveal possibilities you may not have imagined and resilience you may not have understood. This learning makes you wiser and more flexible. It broadens your mind and deepens your spirit. You realize that the world is far larger and richer than your own experiences. To live this truth, you must practice slowing down. In a fast-moving world, it is easy to reduce people to labels or quick impressions. But understanding others requires time and presence. It requires looking into their eyes, noticing their expressions, and sensing the energy behind their words. It requires asking gentle questions and being open to whatever answers emerge. It also requires being comfortable with silence, because sometimes people need time before they can reveal their story. Recognizing that everyone carries an unseen story also nurtures gratitude. You begin to appreciate the courage it takes for people to show up each day despite their challenges. You honor their efforts even when they falter. You celebrate their victories even when they are small. This gratitude deepens your empathy and keeps you grounded in respect. It reminds you that you too have a story and that others may not know it either. This shared vulnerability creates a subtle bond between you and the people around you. As you practice this awareness daily, you become a calmer and more compassionate presence. People will notice that you treat them differently. They will feel your patience and your sincerity. This feeling often inspires them to open up and share more of their truth. Each conversation becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to exchange understanding instead of judgments. Slowly, But surely this practice reshapes your relationships and your environment. Every person carries a story you have not yet heard, and when you honor this truth, you step into a higher way of living. You stop acting on assumptions and start responding to reality. You stop closing doors and start opening hearts. In this space, trust can grow, empathy can deepen, and connection can flourish. When you remember that behind every action is a story, you gain the patience and the strength to meet others with compassion. This is how understanding becomes natural and how respect turns into lasting harmony. Respect differences as paths to growth, not barriers, because every human being is shaped by a unique combination of culture, experience, values, and dreams. When you encounter someone who thinks differently from you or lives differently from you, it is an invitation to see another dimension of life. Too often people see differences as threats, as reasons to compete or reject. This mindset builds invisible walls and closes doors to understanding. But when you shift your perspective and see differences as opportunities for learning, you begin to grow beyond your own limits. You discover qualities, ideas, and strengths that you never knew existed. Every difference you meet is like a mirror showing you something about yourself. It reveals your own assumptions, habits, and beliefs. If you react with resistance, it shows where your mind is rigid. If you react with openness, it shows where your heart is ready to expand. In this way, differences are teachers. They test your patience, they challenge your identity, and they stretch your empathy. They help you practice humility because they remind you that your view is not the only view. This humility is not weakness. It is the foundation of wisdom and compassion. Respecting differences begins with self-awareness. When you know your own values and preferences, you can hold them firmly without needing to attack others. You understand that someone can be different without being wrong. This creates an inner stability that allows you to listen deeply, to explore new ideas, and to connect authentically. It also gives you the ability to stay grounded even when disagreements arise. Instead of becoming defensive, you can become curious. Instead of building a wall, you can build a bridge. Differences also serve as catalysts for creativity and innovation. When people with diverse perspectives work together, new solutions emerge. Each person sees a piece of the whole picture, and together they create something larger than any one individual could imagine. This is why respectful collaboration produces stronger results than uniform thinking. When you respect differences, you invite fresh energy and unexpected insights into your life. You break the cycle of repeating what you already know and step into a wider field of possibility. Learning to respect differences also deepens empathy. It allows you to see the humanity beneath the surface of another person's choices or beliefs. You begin to understand the reasons behind their actions. Even when you disagree, you can still acknowledge their dignity. This acknowledgement is powerful because it reduces tension and invites mutual respect. It helps transform conflict into dialogue and misunderstanding into cooperation. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself by diminishing another. Instead, you strengthen yourself by expanding your capacity to understand. To practice this in daily life, notice your reactions when you encounter difference. Pause before judging. Ask yourself what you can learn from this person or situation. Try to listen without preparing your rebuttal. Allow yourself to be surprised. Even if you do not adopt their perspective, simply knowing it exists enlarges your mind. This is how you grow. This is how respect transforms you. Respecting differences also builds a sense of unity. Unity does not mean sameness, it means harmony among diversity. In nature, every ecosystem thrives on diversity. Different species play different roles, and together they create balance. Human communities are the same. Each person has unique gifts and insights. When these are respected rather than suppressed, the whole community becomes stronger and more resilient. This is why respecting differences is not only a personal virtue, but also a social necessity. Another important aspect of respecting differences is learning to let go of fear. Fear is often what drives people to reject what is unfamiliar. But when you stay present and grounded, fear loses its grip. You realize that another person's way of living does not threaten your own. It simply reflects another path. From this realization comes freedom. You become free from prejudice, free from unnecessary conflict, and free to explore life with curiosity and openness. As you develop this mindset, your relationships shift. People feel safer around you. They sense they can be authentic without hiding parts of themselves. This authenticity creates stronger connections and deeper trust. It also encourages them to extend the same respect to you. Over time, this mutual respect becomes a shared foundation on which you can build meaningful friendships, partnerships, and communities. It becomes a cycle of growth and connection that benefits everyone involved. Respecting differences as paths to growth, not barriers, transforms the way you experience the world. It enriches your mind, strengthens your character, and softens your heart. It teaches you patience and openness. It leads you toward a life where you can meet any person with curiosity rather than judgment, and where you can find common ground even when your paths seem far apart. This simple practice is a powerful force for harmony, for learning, and for lasting understanding. Presence and patience reveal what words cannot, because most of what truly matters between people happens beneath the surface of conversation. In a world full of distraction and hurry, it is rare for someone to give their complete attention. Yet when you choose to be fully present with another person, you create a quiet space that invites truth to emerge. This kind of presence is not passive. It is an active stillness, a deliberate decision to bring your whole awareness to the moment. When you do this, you begin to notice things you could not perceive before. You sense shifts in tone, subtle expressions, pauses that carry meaning, and emotions that hide between words. All of this can only be felt, not spoken. Patience is the companion of presence. Without patience, presence becomes fragile and shallow. Many people think they are listening, but in reality they are waiting for their turn to speak, rushing the other person toward a conclusion. Patience allows you to slow down and let the other person unfold at their own pace. It communicates respect more deeply than any words could. When someone feels your patience, they relax. They feel safe to speak honestly, to reveal the parts of themselves they usually keep hidden. This is why patience is powerful. It is an unspoken gesture of trust. When you combine presence and patience, you develop a rare kind of insight. You begin to feel the energy behind the words. You can tell when someone is speaking from fear, from love, from pride, or from pain. This is not something you can learn from a book. It comes from experience and from your willingness to quiet your own inner noise. In that quietness, intuition awakens. Intuition is simply your natural ability to read subtle signals when you are not distracted. It helps you understand others more fully, even when they do not yet understand themselves. This practice also strengthens your emotional balance. When you are present, you are not pulled into the past or the future. You are anchored in the now. When you are patient, you are not trying to control the timing or the outcome of the interaction. Together, these qualities protect you from reacting impulsively. They give you space to breathe, to feel, and to respond thoughtfully. In this way, presence and patience are not only gifts to others. They are also gifts to yourself. They help you stay centered and calm even in difficult conversations. Another power of presence and patience is the healing it can bring. Many people carry unspoken pain, and sometimes words are not enough to release it. But a calm presence and a patient heart can become a kind of refuge. When someone feels truly seen and heard without pressure, their own inner tension begins to dissolve. This can happen even without verbal advice or solutions. Simply sitting quietly with someone, holding space for them, can be more transformative than any speech. This is a quiet form of compassion, and it builds bonds that last. Practicing presence and patience also elevates your relationships. In friendships, it deepens trust. In family life, it creates stability. In leadership, it inspires loyalty and respect. People naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel understood. They remember how you made them feel far longer than they remember your words. This emotional memory shapes the foundation of your connection. By offering presence and patience, you are planting seeds of understanding that will continue to grow long after the conversation ends. To develop this quality, start by slowing your own pace. Notice your breathing when you listen to someone. Allow small pauses instead of rushing to fill silence. Let your attention settle on the person in front of you, as if they are the only one in the room. Resist the urge to check your phone or to plan your response. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back. Over time, this becomes a natural habit rather than a forced effort. The more you practice, the more others will feel the depth of your attention. Presence and patience also teach humility. They remind you that understanding cannot be forced. You cannot extract truth from someone like water from a well. You can only create the conditions for it to rise naturally. This humility softens your ego and expands your empathy. It transforms you from a speaker into a listener, from a persuader into a companion. This shift not only benefits your relationships, but also enriches your own spirit. It is a form of inner training that strengthens your character. When you live with presence and patience, you begin to see beyond appearances. You recognize the quiet signals of joy, the subtle tremors of fear, the silent requests for support. You understand that every person carries layers of meaning beyond what they say. This awareness allows you to respond more skillfully and compassionately. It makes your communication more authentic and your relationships more resilient. Over time, it changes the atmosphere around you. People feel calmer in your presence because you are calm. They feel more open because you are open. They feel more understood because you are patient. Presence and patience reveal what words cannot, because they open a doorway to the unspoken. They let you enter the space where true understanding resides. They give others the freedom to be themselves and give you the clarity to truly see them. In practicing this, you cultivate a quiet strength and a deeper humanity. This is how genuine understanding is built and how lasting connections are formed. Understanding others is also understanding yourself, because every interaction you have with another person reflects something about your own inner world. When you observe how you respond to someone else's words, emotions, or behaviors, you begin to see your own beliefs, patterns, and values. In this way, relationships act like mirrors. They show you your strengths, your fears, your expectations, and your limitations. This awareness is not always comfortable, but it is essential if you wish to grow. Each time you strive to understand another person, you uncover a deeper layer of yourself. When you truly listen to someone else, you train your mind to slow down and your heart to open. This act of listening strengthens your patience, humility, and empathy. These qualities do not exist only for the benefit of others. They transform you from within. As you learn to hold space for another person's experience, you become more skilled at holding space for your own emotions. You begin to notice your reactions without judging them. You discover that the same compassion you offer outward can also be directed inward. This balance creates a sense of peace that radiates through your interactions. Seeing yourself in others also dissolves the illusion of separation. You realize that behind the differences of culture, language, or belief, there are common human needs. To be respected, to be heard, to be safe, to be loved. When you recognize these shared needs in someone else, you also affirm them in yourself. This recognition nurtures compassion and reduces judgment. It reminds you that your own struggles are not unique and that empathy is a two-way path. The more you understand others, the more clearly you see your own humanity reflected back. Understanding yourself through others also strengthens your emotional resilience. You begin to notice the triggers that arise in certain interactions. Instead of reacting automatically, you start to pause and reflect. Why does this person's behavior upset me? Why do I feel inspired or intimidated in their presence? These questions lead you inward to explore your own history, your values, and your sense of identity. By confronting these inner dynamics, you loosen their grip. You become more grounded and less controlled by unconscious patterns. This inner work makes you more authentic and more capable of connecting deeply with others. As you grow in self-understanding, your ability to empathize expands. You no longer see people only through the lens of your needs or fears. You start to appreciate their uniqueness and accept their imperfections. This acceptance reflects back onto you as well. You find it easier to forgive yourself, to embrace your own imperfections, and to celebrate your strengths. This mutual acceptance fosters genuine connection because it removes the masks we often wear to protect ourselves. In that openness, understanding flows naturally. Practicing this awareness daily changes the way you communicate. You choose words with more care, knowing how deeply they can affect someone else. You listen for the unspoken, sensing how your presence influences the moment. You also become more honest about your own feelings and boundaries. This honesty invites trust and respect. Over time, your relationships become more balanced and nourishing because they are built on authenticity rather than performance. By understanding yourself through others, you step into a more conscious way of living. Another important effect of this practice is the release of judgment. When you recognize that your judgments of others often reveal something about yourself, you begin to soften them. This does not mean you ignore harmful behavior, but it does mean you approach it with greater clarity and less personal bias. You can address issues with firmness, yet still maintain compassion. This is a sign of maturity, the ability to hold both accountability and empathy at the same time. The more you see yourself in others, the more you begin to sense an interconnectedness that transcends individual lives. You realize that everyone you meet contributes something to your journey, even those who challenge you. Their presence invites you to grow stronger, wiser, and more open-hearted. You also recognize that your behavior contributes to their journey as well. This awareness makes you more responsible with your words, actions, and energy. It transforms ordinary interactions into sacred opportunities for learning and growth. Understanding others is also understanding yourself because each relationship is a dialogue between two inner worlds. By engaging with openness and curiosity, you expand your own consciousness. You see not only who they are, but also who you are becoming. In this way, every encounter holds the potential to teach you something about compassion, patience, and courage. By embracing this truth, you create a cycle of growth that benefits both you and the people around you. This is how understanding matures into wisdom and how wisdom blossoms into lasting connection. As we reach the end of this journey together, remember that understanding others is not a single act, but a lifelong practice. It begins with listening deeply, with empathy that bridges hearts, with calm self-awareness that clears our perception, with respect for differences, with presence and patience, and with the humble realization that in seeing others clearly, we also see ourselves. Each moment you choose compassion over judgment, you strengthen your character and elevate the world around you. Each time you offer your attention, your patience, and your respect, you plant seeds of trust that grow into harmony. May you carry these insights into every conversation, every challenge, and every relationship. May your presence become a source of peace and your actions a spark of inspiration. I wish you courage to keep learning, strength to stay open, and wisdom to build bridges wherever you go. Good luck on your path, and thank you for sharing this time and energy together.